Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. And if you have any questions or comments, leave a question or comment. All right, I just want to talk for about 10 minutes on another kind of interesting and unique feature of Pathfinder 2, and that is Ancestries and Heritages. So in D&D, even though they've gotten away from the term race and they're thinking about calling it species, which I don't quite understand, but in Pathfinder 2, you pick an ancestry, and then each one of those ancestries has or can have a heritage. So that would be like the difference between a hill dwarf and a mountain dwarf. The hill or the mountain part of it would be the heritage, and the dwarf would be the ancestry. So when you're creating your character, you're going to pick the ancestry, and there's a whole bunch of them, tons of them. Just like there are in a lot of other games, there's a whole bunch of them in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So I've got a couple of the books open. As you can see up here, we've got the Core Rule Book, the Advanced Player's Guide, Guns and Gears, and Lost Omens. So, it says here you pick your ancestry, and they've got an example of a bunch of different ancestries: dwarves, elves, gnomes, goblins, halflings, humans. So let's kind of go through all of those, and let's look at the formatting for this. And this is one of my kind of more favorite type of mechanics for this. So there's a bunch of entries in each page for the ancestry, but let's look at one. So here's dwarf. If you look at, they kind of give you a description of the dwarfs themselves and what their society is. And then it gives us a rundown on this side of the page here for how many hit points the dwarf has, starting out, what size they are, its speed, what the ability boosts they get. We'll get into that when we talk about some of the character creation mechanics. They have an ability flaw. We'll get into that too. What languages they start out with, what traits they have. And these are kind of keywords, and that they do all have dark vision. And then you can pick your heritage. So if we look back here, it says heritage. You select a heritage at first level to reflect abilities passed down to you from your ancestors or common among those of your ancestry in the environment where you were born or grew up. So it's kind of, almost think of it as, certain genetic traits. And a heritage is not the same as a culture or an ethnicity, though some cultures or ethnicity might have few or more members of a particular heritage. And in addition, mechanically, so you get things automatically if you are a specific ancestry, and then automatically if you are a specific heritage of that ancestry. And then, in addition, so for instance, this is Ancient Blooded Dwarf. You can call on the Ancient Blood. You attempt a saving throw against a magic effect, but you haven't rolled yet. Your ancestors' innate resistance to magic surges, and you get a +1 to that saving throw. Death Warden Dwarf, Forge Dwarf, Rock Dwarf, Strong Blooded Dwarf. And then at first level, you gain one Ancestry feat, and then you gain another one every 4 levels after that. So at 5th, 9th, 13th, and 17th. So you get feats. The Pathfinder 2 is built off of a lot of feats. You can customize your characters based off of the feats that you get. So you get these ancestry feats that are part of your ancestry. Again, there's skill feats, general feats, and then there's class-specific feats. And then there's kind of cross-class feats or multi-classing feats. But we're going to talk about the ancestry. So you get to pick feats. So each one of the ancestries has a different set of feats that you get, and when you get certain levels in your character, you automatically get these. But you pick from them. So, for instance, with the dwarf, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different first level ancestry feats, and every time that you reach one of those milestone levels, you can pick a feat of the level that you are or below. So I could pick all of these first level feats if I wanted to. So you got Dwarven Lore, Dwarven Weapon Familiarity, Rock Runner, Stone Cunning, Unburdened Iron, Vengeful Hatred. So and then 5th level, it's got more things. So they get more kind of, I guess, more powerful as you get up in levels too. So then we have elves. Here we have how many hit points. You can see the elves start with less hit points. There's the heritages, which are Arctic elf, cavern elf, seer elf, whisper elf, or woodland elf. And then there, here's their feats that they would get as well. And after that, we've got gnomes. And we've got chameleon gnomes, fey touch gnomes, sensate gnomes, umbral gnomes, and wellspring gnomes. And then we've got all their feats. And then we've got goblins. A goblin is a base race in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And there's charhide goblins, iron gut goblins, razor tooth goblins, snow goblins, and unbreakable goblin. And then they've got all their feats. We've got halflings, gusty halfling, hillock halfling, nomadic halfling, twilight halfling, wildwood halfling, and then we've got all their feats. And then humans have some different heritages. So you can be a half-elf, you can be a half-orc. And those are more or less counted as heritages. So half-elf is a heritage, half-orc is a heritage. There's the skilled heritage, which is not, I wouldn't think of it so much as a genetic trait, but as a kind of environmental trait that, or maybe something you were born with that allows you to be a little bit more skilled. And then there's the versatile heritage for humans, and they get a general feat. And so for humans, instead of this ability boost where it's dex, wisdom, and a free one, and then they have an ability flaw, humans have 2 free ability boosts and no flaw. Okay, so after humans, there's some and then there are specific feats for the heritage that you take as a human. So we've got, so they could take first level. At first level, you could take first level these feats here if you were a half elf, or you could take one of these. You could take this one. It's like one. It's not. There's not very many choices that happen. And then there's one. There's a few. There's a bunch for half orcs. Okay. So in the Advanced Player's Guide, there are a bunch of different new ancestries and it's called versatile heritages. So while the core rulebook presented heritages as a subgroup of a particular ancestry, certain heritages can occur across all ancestries. For instance, if your mother was a hag, you could be a changeling whether you're a human or orc. So you'd pick that human, and then you'd pick changeling. There's planar scions. They're descended from distant planar ancestors. So they detail here Celestra, Aasimars, Psychopomp, Duskwalkers, and Fiendish Tiefling. So Tiefling is actually one of these versatile heritages. And then there's some more ancestry options for each of the base, for the base race, for the base heritages. So let's take a look here. So Catfolk, these are our new ancestries. Catfolk, Kobold, Orc, Ratfolk, and Tengu. So here's Catfolk. There's their base stuff that they get. And then there's a few heritages for the Catfolk. There's Kobolds. You can play Kobolds. And there's just full-blooded Orcs. So you could play a full-blooded Orc. And here's their heritages. There's Ratfolk. Here's all their stuff. And then they have a few heritages. And then there's Tengu. There's their base stuff. And then here's their heritages and their feats. Now here's the versatile heritages. So these can be plunked down on just about anything. First you select your ancestry just like you would for any character. You gain all the stuff from that. And then then instead of choosing a heritage from those normally available to your ancestry, you apply a chosen versatile heritage. So you could be a changeling dwarf or a changeling halfling, something like that. And which allows you to get, so you get your base heritage stuff, but it allows you to take from these feats that are here. So Dampier is like a vampire. We've got the planar scions, which are Aasimar. So that's a versatile. So you could be a human Aasimar. So you're descendant from angels, a Duskwalker, or a Tiefling. And then they've got some new ancestry feats for the base heritages as well that you can choose from out of this book. The Lost Omens book has a bunch of new heritages that come. So they have the Aasimar, the Azaketi, the Cat folk. These are, that's a heritage, ancestry, heritage. So some of these are heritages and some of these are ancestries. So they have some more feats in here for some of these. These are versatile. This is a heritage. This is an ancestry that has heritages and then feats. Catfolk. And there's a couple of new different types of catfolk heritages in here from the previous book. And some new feats. So these all fit Changeling. Some new stuff for them. New stuff for the Dampiers. And new stuff for the Dustwalkers. And then there's Hobgoblin. And here's some of the heritages for Hobgoblins. I believe that the Hobgoblin is a heritage off of Goblin. So you take the base Goblin stats and you become a Hobgoblin. Then in Kobold. So these are new heritages and feats for Kobolds. Leshy. And so on and so forth. We got Lizard Folk. And so on and so forth. So that's basically the just a real quick summary of the mechanics that we're looking at, the game mechanics of what would be in Dungeons and Dragons a race, but is a ancestry and a heritage. So there's a lot of flavor and a lot of versatility that you can put into your character based off of what ancestry and what heritage you tie to that ancestry. And there's a lot of choice, a lot of customization that happens out of that. So I hope everybody appreciated everything and enjoyed the video, and I will catch everybody later.